Hello, everybody. A couple of people, welcome back. And to everybody else who is brand new, hello, and my name is Krista. I'm going to be your tutor today. So just before we get started, I'm just going to check the roll. So I can see most of you have got names already up, which is excellent. There's just one that I don't recognize, which is Monty. Who would you be, Monty? Oh, it's Harmony. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we're just waiting for, I think, 2 more people. And both of those people are people who were at the 10 a.m. session, so they should be joining us pretty soon anyway. Before we get started, I do just want to give a quick introduction to who I am and what we're going to do today. So my name is Krista, as I said. I'm one of the senior tutors at Sydney Art School. I teach quite a lot of classes. I do teach kids classes and senior transition classes, but I also teach a lot of the adult classes. And I teach drawing, I teach watercolour, I teach oil painting, so I've got a pretty broad range of skills. But what I also do is I illustrate. So I'm a kids book illustrator and I illustrate picture books. So I'm very interested in illustration and art for kids. I don't do that much professionally that is sort of anime style, although I am actually working on a picture book at the moment that is an anime style. But it's still a lot of the principles of illustration and even fine art do apply to anime. So with you all coming here today, what I hope you're here for is to sort of try and learn some of the skills so that rather than just copying anime that you might see, copying specific images, you can start to sort of understand what it is that you're looking at, like how the artist thought about and constructed the work themselves. And you can also start to apply it to your own references or even work from your imagination a little bit. So there's a lot that we'll try and get through in the 2.5 hours, but it is just one session and it is only 2.5 hours. So we're not going to be able to cover absolutely everything, but I do hope that it will still be interesting and informative. I know the first group that did some work this morning, they all said they had a lot of fun and they learned a lot. So that's really good. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So I will show you how we're going to work today. Essentially what's going to happen is most of the time I will be sharing my screen and it will be of this, which is Photoshop. And I will be working digitally in Photoshop. So I'll be drawing live on your screen and any examples and references that I'm using will also be on the screen in Photoshop. So you can use those and copy along as we go. I'm also very happy to critique your work as well if you want to share it with me. Previously, what we've done is actually had, or in my adult classes that I teach online as well, generally what we do is we have students take a photograph and they send it to me on email. So that's an option that we can do this time as well. But also a lot of people ended up just showing me in their chat window their work and I could have a look at that and a comment on that as well. So I'm going to just bring up our little presentation here to start with. So this is our workshop. Just a very quick brief overview. As I said to the group this morning, I'm sure lots of you are used to using Zoom now for online school. And so you're probably familiar with how to use it, how to set it up, how to mute and unmute and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think I need to do very much, but what I would say is we will have the chat open. So please do share any thoughts that you want to share in the chat and I'll try and address those as we go. You're all going to be muted by default. But if you do want to say something, if you want to share something with the group, hi Mia, then by all means, you can unmute yourself and say something, but do wait for me to call you. So I will send my email address into the group chat. I think we're all here now, so I'll pop it in there now. Cassandra was just asking what my email address is. So I'm just going to put that in now.
Seems to be a little early. There's no one here.
No, everyone's here. You're the last.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see the video panel, but there's 10 people. 10 people.
There is. I can't see anyone.
I don't know. Okay, so my email address is in the chat now. So have a look in the chat if you want to find my email address, and you can send me how your work is going. And then for anything else, for just getting my attention, probably best to just pop it in the chat. You can direct message me, or you can message the entire group. I don't really mind which. Just keep it respectful, obviously, if you're messaging the rest of the group. All right. So this is just what I was talking about in terms of take a picture. This is an example of my other student work. So different stages of the work. And so she sent that through to me, and then I brought it up in Photoshop and adjusted it for her in Photoshop. We probably don't have as much time to do that kind of thing today. And also a few people were a little bit shy with their work and didn't want everyone to sort of be seeing it be adjusted live. So that's fine, I understand. But if I can give you some feedback, it's going to be more valuable for you. So do keep that in mind. We're all learning. So there's no judgment coming from me. Now, in terms of materials, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be working digitally, so I'll be drawing in Photoshop, but whatever tools you have available or you're comfortable with using, I'm happy for you to do that. So I do work traditionally in traditional mediums quite a lot as well, not just in Photoshop. So I'm happy, and I'm often using pencils, graphite pencils, or a mechanical pencil is actually my preference. And my mechanical pencil, I think, is great because it's always sharp, which is fantastic. Also, obviously, you're going to need paper. You'll need an eraser. A plastic eraser is good. A kneadable eraser is better. If you know what a kneadable eraser is, if you don't know, it's the one that sort of looks like a piece of blue tack. So it's also called a putty eraser. And the reason I think a kneadable eraser or a putty eraser is so good is because you can then erase things without having to remove everything. You can just take off a little bit. And especially when you're sketching things out to begin with, that's really good. But I'm also happy for you to use tablet or digital tools as well. Excuse me. I did mention to the last group that if they wanted to get any colouring in done, you could be using coloured markers or acrylic paints or coloured pencils. But in the end, we actually didn't get any colouring done. We were more focused on sort of different examples and techniques. Okay, so we're going to go through some examples now. I did go through some of these earlier with the previous group. So I'm actually just going to skip forward to a little bit further down. We're going past facial proportions. Okay. So as much as I would love to talk about absolutely every single anime that is good and worth talking about in the whole world, we don't have that much time. And unfortunately, this isn't just a session of fanning about how cool anime is. We are here to try and discuss techniques and a little bit of understanding. So I'm just going to give you some examples of different anime. It may not be your favorite anime, but I've tried to get a range of anime showing different body types and different kinds of character designs, because I really want you to see that there is actually a broad range of characters and character designs that are out there. So this first one is from My Neighbor Totoro, and it's by Hayao Miyazaki. Hayao Miyazaki did a whole range of different movies, primarily movies, including Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. and various other anime. He works with Studio Ghibli, and Studio Ghibli also has a range of other animators and other designers who work for them. So, but there's a very particular style to Miyazaki's work, and I would say it's a little bit older in the sense that he has been making anime since the sort of 70s and 80s, and he has a real sense of character design, and it's always very individualistic. So this example is May from My Neighbor Totoro. And you can see that the character design, particularly of her face, is very, very particular. She has sort of a big forehead and a small chin and a small mouth, but her nose is quite far up her face. So there's a real sense of individualism to this character. If we compare that to something completely different, which is Goku from Dragon Ball by artist Akira Toriyama, you can see we're looking at two entirely different styles of anime. And not just styles of anime, but styles of storytelling as well. And that's why the characters are so different. So going back to May's character is designed to tell the kind of story that My Neighbor Totoro is, which is a story about family and dealing with grief and all sorts of really beautiful sort of topics and talking about childhood. And so it's the design of her character is very soft and relatable and quite cute. Whereas in Dragon Ball, this is, well, at least was the main character of the first sort of Dragon Ball series, Goku is tough. He's a fighter. He's supposed to be the greatest, most powerful fighter in the world. So Goku's character design is very different. And even as a child, even the character design, which is on the right, is very different from the character design of May as a child. He's still sort of tough and even slightly muscular looking as a child. And obviously in that middle one that you can see, very, very muscular. Yeah, the shirt ripping that Goku does, he goes through a lot of shirts. It's pretty clear. Cassandra just commented on not liking the look of his ripped shirt, but honestly, I think he rips off a shirt pretty much every episode. And the reason I've only chosen Goku for this is because we do see a range of different ages of Goku, if you like, and a lot of the character designs in Dragon Ball are very similar. They're all this same kind of muscular, over-the-top muscular character. So if we have a look at another character design, we did have a look at this in the first section at 10 a.m. this morning as well. So not just talking about anime. Anime is the animated version of things, so that applies to TV and movies. But then you also have manga, and manga is the comic version of things, so it's the physical story, graphic novels or comics, or as they are now, you can get digital comics. But it's also computer games. So this is Legend of Zelda, which is a computer game series that's also been running for years and years and years. The one that's on the left is from Breath of the Wild, which is, I think, still the most recent version of Legend of Zelda. And his character, this is Link, the main character, his character has changed significantly over the years. But I'm also showing this one to you because we also have this chibi design, chibi being the sort of the cute, small version that you sometimes get in anime as well. So I would say May, this is going back to My Neighbor Totoro, she's close to chibi, but she's not quite. She's almost, you could say, like a proto-chibi, because her character would have been designed before that concept was really a thing. But you can see the similarities in the sense that you're looking at a character that has a very large head and a very small body. All of the limbs are sort of refined down to their absolute basics. So, you know, he almost doesn't have feet or toes. They just come to a short sort of square edge, and the hands are very simplified. So that's very much the the chibi style, is refining things down to be as cute as possible, as small and cute as possible, but with big expressive heads. And so having a character that goes from all the way from, action adventure hero to adorable small chibi child, that shows that there can even be a range, even across an individual anime. There can be a range of styles of anime. And I'm using anime in the broad sense of the term, as opposed to specifying that it's just for TV or movies. Now, moving on, we've also got another, again, this is another computer game, but it's also anime, also manga, also card game. So this is Pokemon. Pokemon has crossed over just so many different styles. You sort of can't talk about anime without talking about Pokemon, I think, because it is so popular. And also in terms of thinking about character design, obviously, the Pokemon universe has so many characters, not just the people characters, but the actual Pokemon themselves. And there's so much variation and interest that goes into those character designs. So there's a whole world of creative imagination that you could have. But what makes it anime, as opposed to just something that is a cartoon, that's the kind of specifics that we need to look at. And a lot of that probably, I would say, has to do with faces and the style of animation. So how realistic or unrealistic it is, how simplified it is. And here's another one. This is One Piece. And One Piece has been an anime in the sense that it's a TV show. I think also movies. There have been movies of One Piece. And it's a comic. It's a manga. So it has been a manga for years and years and years. It's actually quite old. And again, like My Neighbor Totoro, you notice that the character design I would describe as being a slightly old school, older kind of character design. And the reason I say that, I think, is because with older character designs, I think there tends to be a lot more variation. So when we're looking across all of these characters, their faces are all different, their eyes are different, their expressions are different. And that's something that is characteristic of the older style of anime and manga. And I don't say that like it's a good or a bad thing, it's a thing. I think if you look at more modern anime, so for example, this is My Hero Academia, they're not all identical, but there's a lot more similarity between individual characters. Their body shapes and body types might be slightly different, and you do get very small, cute characters as well. But there is a sense of looking from face to face and hairstyle to hairstyle, maybe, eye shape to eye shape, and so on. There's a little bit less specific variation, and they become a little bit more uniform. So what we're going to focus on this afternoon is focusing less on individual faces, which we did this morning, and we're going to focus more on bodies and body construction. So we had a session this morning, 10 a.m. till 12:30, and then this session is 1 until 3:30. We have another 2 sessions next Friday. So if you've already booked in for next Friday, that's fantastic. If you haven't and you want to, I will just let you know that we will be doing the opposite order of things next Friday. So there will be bodies in the morning, and then there'll be faces in the afternoon. And so the reason I've done that is because that way, if you're only at this session, I hope you still do get something very valuable out of it. But if you did want to have a repeat session and you were only available at the same kind of time next Friday, then it wouldn't be the same focus. No matter how many sessions you're doing, though, I will be doing slightly different things. And also, it's always worth practicing the same material more than once, because you do get better and you do get better understanding. So in terms of setting up the body, oh, by the way, I know I'm just more or less talking nonstop at the moment, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will answer them as we go as well. In terms of thinking now about the stages of building a character or looking at figure drawing, and this applies to any kind of figure drawing, not just figure drawing for anime. The first thing that we need to do is we need to set up a little bit of construction. So thinking about the big shapes, which is the rib cage, the head, and the hips. So we've got a large shape for the head, an even larger sort of egg shape for the rib cage, and then for the hips, something that's kind of triangular. That's roughly the right idea. Now, when it comes to then arms and legs, you need the arms coming from the shoulders, so not coming from the center of the body, not coming from the neck, need to be coming from the shoulders. And the same with the legs, need to be coming from the sides of the hips, so not coming from the middle of the spine. These are two really important factors that people often don't get quite right. I think what can often happen when we're first kind of sketching characters out is we forget about the shoulders and we forget about the hips, and we end up drawing the arms coming from the middle of the neck, sort of coming from out here, and the legs coming from the middle of the spine. And what you end up with then, just bring up Photoshop here, what we would end up with then is going to be something that is, say, head, neck, spine. We might even have rib cage in here, but then we have legs coming from the middle of the body, and you have arms coming from the middle of the neck. And the problem with that is there's no width on the shoulders and there's no width on the hips, and the angle of the legs and the angle of the arms will be wrong. And that can be a big issue when you're trying to do different kinds of poses. Oh, sorry, I thought I was sharing my Photoshop screen and I wasn't just then. Sorry, I'll do that again. So I should have said, so here, so we've got the head and the spine and the rib cage, but then we're doing arms out of the middle of the neck and legs out of the middle of the spine at the bottom. And it means that the angle of the legs here is always going to be wrong because it's not coming from the right position. It's not coming from either side of the hips. And the angle of the arms is always going to be wrong because it's not coming from the right position on the shoulders. Yes, it is a stick man, exactly, Cassandra. It's very much the hangman kind of stick man, and that's definitely not the right kind of shape, or at least the right starting point for your figures. So the right starting point is what I've got here, which is we need head, shoulders, and the shoulders are actually coming into a slight V for the collarbone, and then spine, and the spine can have a curve to it, and then rib cage and hips, and we can make that into a triangle, and then the legs and the arms are coming from the sides of the shoulders and the legs are coming from the sides of the hips. And we'll get to building up the next layer, but before we get to that, I do just want to then show you, if we look here at some of the figures, so let's have a look at My Hero Academia figures, you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. So the width of the shoulders, the arms are coming from the sides of the shoulders, and the legs are coming from the sides of the hips. So as much as there is a slight outward angle, they're not a perfect triangle coming from the middle. They're coming from the sides of the hips. Same back here, you can see from the sides of the hips. And that's true for all of the characters that we're looking at. The legs have to come from the sides of the hips, not from the middle of the body. Have a look at these two as well. See, out from the sides. So this understanding of anatomy and proportions, every person who is working professionally, who is doing any kind of anime, even the chibi characters have shoulder width and hip width. Anyone who's working professionally knows this. This is the absolute core kind of basics to being able to design and draw characters in various poses. And no matter how cutesy your character is, this is a foundation that is true for all character design. Even with Goku with his shirt ripping massive muscles, he still has arms coming from shoulders and legs coming from hips. So the next stage then is building up the muscle shapes on top of that sort of skeleton, if you like, and it is a skeleton that we're describing. And the muscle shapes need to be following the skeleton shape. Now, I have also, just before I get ahead of myself, I have also put in a triangle for the elbows and a triangle for the knees. Now, I have seen in the past, or I've seen fairly frequently, people putting circles for elbows and knees. So why have I chosen a triangle instead of a circle? And the reason is because if you look at your own kneecap, or if you look at your own elbow, it is more of a triangular shape than it is a circular shape. And I think the problem with putting circles is that quite often that means people draw the circles too big, because it's not a big shape. And the front of your kneecap is more of a triangular kind of shape than it is a circular shape. And same even with the elbows, there's more of a sense of it being a triangle. The bone of your upper arm comes to a triangular kind of shape, and then the bone of your lower arm locks into that shape. So I'm not going to go deep into structure and anatomy for the body. I don't think you need to know all of that. But it is also at some stage worth having a look at and worth studying if you do want to take character design and drawing a bit more seriously. Now, in terms of hands and feet at this stage, I have just simplified things down to hands are kind of rectangular or square, and the feet are triangular. And so this is really common with feet. Feet people struggle with a lot, and hands. And I would say the big thing is feet are triangular and hands are often rectangular or square. So once we've started to put a little bit of muscle shapes, general muscle shapes onto our figure, then we can do the final outline. And you can see I've built that final outline just based on the initial marks that I've made here. And you can erase all of your initial sketching underneath to put that final inking on there. So let's get to the practical stuff. I'm going to share Photoshop again. So what I said before, you can draw with whatever medium you like. If you want to draw pencil on paper, that's absolutely fine. If you want to draw digitally, that's also fine. And what we're going to start with, we're just going to start with very simple figure, and then we're going to get a little bit more complicated. But rather than starting with this one, I'm going to open the Pokemon one. And so we're going to use Ash Ketchum as our example. Okay, now following along me doing my drawing, I've got it in landscape format, and the only reason I have it in landscape format is because we're going to build it up as we go along. So if you see these additional layers building up, making him more refined. So we're going to build it up, and that means that I want to have room to be able to build it up. But for you, you can just be drawing all on the one piece of paper. So don't feel like you need to work in the same way as me. All right, so this is going to be our example. he's pretty simple. Mia's getting her iPad organized because she's going to do a digital version, which is all good. Now, I'm also going to use my, I don't know if you can see over here, I've got a few layers going. There's a layer which is going to be my sketching layer. And I've got that currently in blue. And what that means is that when I draw on that layer, it is in blue and it's nice and light. So once I've finished with my sketch, my initial sketch, I can easily get rid of that. For everybody else, I would just say draw nice and light. If you're not sure how to draw nice and light, just don't press your pencil too hard against the paper. Also, if you use a lighter pencil, so HB is lighter than 2B, and 2B is lighter than 4B, and so on, make sure you start off with a lighter pencil. So probably an HB would be the right idea. Okay, I am also, just before we carry on, because there was a couple of people who checked in while I was doing introduction. So I just want to make sure we've got our last people here. So Mia is here. And am I still missing anybody? Nope, I think that's everybody. Fantastic. Okay. So to start off with, we're going to put in the head. That's smaller, it's way too big. So for the head, I just want circle to start with. It's going to be the upper part of the head and then the chin. So we did a lot more of this on the face drawing one, but it's the same kind of idea. For those of you who missed out, we're essentially looking at a circle and then angular chin hanging off of that. Yes, Mia, yes, we are. We're going to break this drawing down. So I'm going to do a sketch of this drawing side by side. How do you create a new layer? Are you using Photoshop, Cassandra? If you're using...
Yes.
Yes, okay. So if you go over, have you got this window? Can you see this window that says layers on the right-hand side?
Yep.
Yep. So if you go down the bottom here, right down the bottom next to the bin, there's like a little square with a little triangle. It's meant to be like a piece of paper. Can you see it?
Found it. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we've got head and then we've got neck, and we're not putting in the width of the neck just yet. Then rib cage. So this is all of this size through here, rib cage. And we keep going with the spine coming down, and then hips, make hips triangle. And then legs. Now you notice his legs are at two different angles. So we've got one leg here and then a knee, triangle for a knee. And then that comes down to the foot. And then the other side, we've got slightly different angle. It's going that way, and then knee, which is at the same height, and then leg. Now his feet, I mentioned before about triangles for feet. Have a look at this. Why is that not drawing all of a sudden? Oh, because just realized because it's underneath. That's why my layer was underneath. Whoops. Okay, so if we look at his feet, have a look at the triangle shape of his feet, and then there's another triangle shape here. So his feet are those triangular shapes that I was talking about. Even though he's wearing shoes, he's still got the triangular kind of foot shape. We can make those triangles pretty big. And then his arms, we said they're coming out of his shoulders. So look at the width of his shoulders first. We put that on first. And then this arm is just coming straight down. And we've got elbow there, and then keep going down. And then this arm coming out of that shoulder, elbow there, and then coming up. Now, hands, I mentioned hands being kind of square or kind of rectangular. The other shape they are sometimes is a diamond. So I would say this one, we're looking at pretty square kind of shape for that one. But this one, if I draw a diamond, can you see that diamond shape in his hand there? If we imagine we can see what he's holding, we've got basically a diamond kind of shape. And this is a very common hand shape, is the diamond shape. So always keep an eye out for it. It's an unexpected shape, I think, but it's very common. So we've got a good basis for our Ash. I do think now that I've put the rest of the body in, though, his head's looking a little bit small. So let's extend that before we go much further. So chin down to there. We'll make his chin a bit wider, and I think probably the top of his head needs to be bigger as well. So you can always be adjusting these things. All right, so we've got our skeleton for Ash, which is great. Now we can start to put on a little bit of the muscle mass, if you like. It's not, Mia's just asking, could we have it as any gender? At this stage, absolutely. And I think especially if we're talking about a younger person, like someone who hasn't really gone through puberty or is only just starting to go through puberty, I think most of the proportions are going to be pretty similar. Something that is worth considering, though, maybe is the like the body mass of the person. So if you're going to have someone who is bigger, like, you know, if you've got someone who's very skinny or you've got someone who is larger, and absolutely no shame or judgment on either of those, but obviously that is going to change the way that you draw someone. So with this character, we're looking at someone who's, yeah, you know, reasonably kind of skinny, maybe a little bit average. And we've got, and he's also, I would say, maybe only just going through puberty. It's not someone who is like a grown adult. This is someone who's maybe 11 or 12. So with the shapes, we don't have a lot of muscle mass either. If we think back to like the Goku style, there's a lot more going on with those muscles. So we've got pretty much in the upper body, in the upper arm, just straight lines to make those arm shapes. When it comes to the lower part of the arm, so the forearm, and also the calf, then you get something slightly different. Then what we get is there's a round muscle that's up close to the joint. So this is close to the elbow. And there's a round muscle here, round muscle. But it doesn't go further than halfway. It doesn't go further than halfway down the length of the arm. And then it becomes more thin. Then it goes quite thin as it comes towards the wrist. And if you look at the legs, I mean, we can't see the top of his legs because they're in shorts, but we can kind of imagine that they're probably doing something like that. If we look where we can see his calf muscles, you can see the same thing here. See, there's a round muscle in there, and there's like a round muscle in there. And then they get quite straighter and thinner as they go down towards the shoe. Now, we haven't put anything on for his head yet, so let's quickly put in some details on his face. Now, we did do this all morning this morning, but we'll just quickly run through it now. So we need the height, so top and bottom of his eyes, top and bottom of his eyes, and then the distance between the eyes, which is usually about 1 eye distance between the eyes. His nose is pretty close to his eyes, and he's got a big, big smile, so mouth quite open. And the eye shape, I'd say this is an eye shape where it's taller than it is wide. So it's quite a tall, narrow kind of eye shape. Almost like a Mickey Mouse kind of eye shape. He's got his hat as well, but we'll put on clothes in a minute. How's everybody doing so far? Is everybody keeping up pretty well? Is anyone struggling? Last time we had everyone had their cameras on. Now we've got no cameras on, so it's very hard for me. I'm assuming everybody's still there, listening, working. Okay, so it's giving me a thumbs up. Good. Do keep me updated with thumbs up. Oh, good. So Ryder said going good. Excellent. Harmony said going good. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to just trim off a little bit on his shoulders, just here and just here, because I think they are maybe a little bit too light. Okay, so we've done stages 1 and 2. So we did the body shape, or sorry, the big proportions, a skeleton. So it's head, rib cage, hips, then direction for legs, direction for arms, rough shape for hand, rough shape for feet. I want everyone to just take a minute to check your proportions. So just make sure that everything is the right kind of size and the right kind of shape. His head, compared to the rest of his body, his head is fairly large. So, and this is because he's not an adult. So when you're a little baby, if you think about little babies, the size of a baby's head compared to the rest of their body is very big. You know, you might have maybe 2 head lengths, as in if this is one head length from there to there. On a baby, you might have maybe 1 or 2 more of those, and then that's the whole baby. So the size of their head compared to the rest of their body is very big. As you get older, obviously the rest of your body grows. And so as an adult, it might be closer to 7 or 8 full head lengths all the way down. But for someone who's a teenager, or as we said, maybe 11 or 12-ish, it's probably going to be maybe 3 head lengths, maybe 4 head lengths. But it certainly means that the head, compared to the rest of the body, looks bigger. All right, I'm going to assume that we are all okay with what we've done so far. Now I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. Mia's just said, why don't we all put on our cameras? And like, honestly, I do think it's nice to see people's faces. If your camera doesn't work or something, that's okay. But it's also nice, as I said, it's sort of nice for me, because at the moment I feel like I'm possibly just talking to myself, and you're all just lucky that I like talking. I will just, if you were here or you weren't here, I'd probably still be talking. Okay, so I've just made this a little bit lighter. And this is so that I can put some of the clothes on now. I think for most of the body, we're probably doing pretty good. But I'm going to put on the clothes now. So for those of you who are following along digitally, I'm going to make a copy of these two. Actually, I'll just make a copy of this layer. Make a copy of this layer. And then pop that under there. And this is going to be a second sketching layer. So I've made this first layer that I did. I'm going to make that lighter. And if you're drawing normally, you're not doing digital, then this would be the time to use your kneadable eraser to just erase some of those lines and make them lighter. And I'm going to, so using this second layer, I'm going to put in some of the details of the clothing. So the clothing needs to follow the body. So the reason I'm saying this right now is because a good example of that is hats. Hats have to be bigger than the head that they're on. Now, I know that that sounds kind of obvious. And obviously I'm not talking about like if he was wearing like a little teeny tiny top hat or something like that, that would be fine. That could be tiny. But what I mean is if the hat is actually on your head, like it's supposed to be going around the shape of your skull, then it needs to be bigger than your skull. You can't have a hat that is smaller than the skull, because otherwise, what does that mean about the skull? It means that the skull has somehow gotten really small just directly under the hat. So you can see on this image, on this one of Ash, his hat is bigger than the size of his head, and that's good. So we'll also put in a bit of the hair detail. He's just got sort of generally spiky hair, which kind of comes out the back there as well. And ear, his ear is quite low. So if you notice, it's sitting, it kind of goes across the middle of his eyes, the top of the ear, which is unusual. Normally ears line up with the top of the eye, and that's true for people as well. That's true for in like realistic drawing. But he's got a very, very low ear, which wouldn't be an accident. That would be a decision that the designer had made, probably to make him look a bit more cute. So I'm refining the edge of that outline now. And give him his eyebrows. He's got a piece of hair that's in the middle of his hat as well. It's pretty iconic. An eyebrow here. And then just make sure that eye shape is in the right kind of position. Give me someone there. It's got big, long oval pupils and iris. So for those of you who did the portrait or the faces this morning with me, notice the way that his iris and pupil are really oval shaped. So they're really extended, like, stretched out. Normally, in real life, a pupil and an iris are going to be basically just round, but his are really stretched into an oval, and that's because his eye is really stretched into an oval. So they've done it on purpose to sort of make his eye, his iris and his pupil fill up the shape, because otherwise he'd look quite strange if you just had a tiny normal iris and pupil in the middle of that massive kind of eye shape. And then we'll put in smile. So smile is there. Smile, basically like a triangle. That's a good starting shape. And then we'll keep coming down, we'll fill in a bit more. So we've got his neck there, and collar of his shirt, and then his actual collar of his sort of vest, I guess. It's a vest, isn't it? It's coming up a little bit higher. And bring that all the way down, so that's coming down to his waist. And vest goes, oh, this is his backpack, isn't it? Straps of his backpack coming across here. Now you notice the way I'm using lots of straight lines for this. Straight lines are very, very good because it's easy to kind of measure straight lines. Whereas circles are really hard to measure. So even when I'm drawing people and portraits, I'll tend to use straight lines as much as possible. And that outline of that arm, we were talking about how there's the round muscle there. And we're coming to the hand now. So with that basic shape that we put in a sort of a square, almost diamond shape. Break it up so that there's a thumb and then finger. And then that's basically it. If you get the overall shape of a hand as a starting point, that's 90% of the work done on drawing the hand. The big mistake people make with drawing hands, and this is true for any kind of drawing hands, the big mistake everyone makes is they focus on the fingers too much. If we look at just the overall shape of this, and we go, okay, so there's a finger doing that, and then I'm going to fit the rest of the fingers just into this shape I've already drawn. 1, 2, 3, and then that one's tucked under. Look at that. Boom. We've got a hand already done. And that just fit into that diamond shape that I originally drew. I know I made that look pretty simple, but that is the key. The key is look for the big shape. It might be a rectangle, it might be a square. It's often a diamond. And then just fill in, and so put the fingers onto that shape. Don't try and draw the individual fingers themselves. All right, and then we've got calf, and over here we've got calf on that side as well, saying it's got that round muscle shape, and then it comes down to the thinner shape. And shoes, following that triangle on the shoes. I would suggest you look at lots of different types of shoes if you're doing your own drawing. And even look at your own shoes for sort of design inspiration, because honestly, for me, trying to think about what shoes look like in my own imagination, it's very hard. It's probably one of the things that I struggle with the most. And I draw a lot of figures and I draw a lot of people, but trying to do shoes, trying to imagine what shoes look like is tough. Good to start with a triangle, but otherwise trying to think about, like, where's the tongue of the shoe and what's the sole of the shoe look like? It's hard stuff. Okay, so this is where we're at now, and I think it's looking pretty good. We've got all of the basic kind of stuff there, and just going back a step, so taking off this layer, going back a step to the previous layer. Let me turn that one up. I'm hoping you can see the way we've built up this construction. So just going over it again, started with the head and the rib cage and the hips. And in terms of which of those three should you start with, there's no right or wrong rule. You don't have to start with one or the other. My preference would actually probably be start with the rib cage. So start through here and the spine and then the hips. And the reason being, because then you can decide how big or small the head should be based on the rib cage and the hips. If you remember right at the beginning, I did start with the head, and then by the time I did the rest of the body, I went, actually, the head's too small and I need to make the head bigger. But you can sort of sketch it out like that. It doesn't have to be right the first time. But I would say if you were starting your own one, maybe start with the shoulders, rib cage, hips, and then put on the head and the arms and the legs as the next stage. But coming back to our more refined version, now we need to actually put on the refined version. So if we are all around about here, let's turn that one down. So I'm turning both the layers down now. And if you can't turn any layers down because you're not doing it digitally, then this is the time to get out the kneadable eraser or whatever eraser you have and just get rid of a lot of your sketchy lines. So you want it to be very faint now so that when we start refining it, we can be a little bit more clear. Now, if you're doing this traditionally as well, so if you're doing this as a traditional drawing rather than a digital one, you could also think about inking it. And so inking it would be literally using like an ink pen or markers. So what's that brand of marker called? I haven't used them, but they use them for Manga all the time. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? They're like a colored marker, professional kind of marker pen. Someone in the chat is saying Copic. Yes, Copic. That's exactly what I was thinking of. So Copic markers you can use to color in your picture, and you could use an ink pen, like a fine liner or something, to do the fine inking all the way for all of the outlining. But with both of those, you definitely want to have as little pencil as possible left when you start doing it. So if you don't have a kneadable eraser, I think you definitely should get one because they're very useful. But even using a plastic eraser to just get rid of most of the pencil, and then using a fine liner to just very carefully go over the final outline. But it does take practice to get good inking. It takes a lot of practice. And so it's something that if you're interested in doing it, you need to practice quite a lot. So next time you're, sitting around in front of the TV or something, just have a practice. Always have your sketch pad with you and some fine liners and keep practicing. Sam has said Copics for professional color and really expensive. And yes, you're absolutely right. They are very expensive. I think there are cheaper ones on the market now. Like I think Montmartre. Let me spell that out for everyone. Montmartre. Nope, that's not it. Montmartre. Montmartre, I think, do like a brand of or a variation on those color markers. They're probably not as good as Copics. Copics are definitely the professional one. But you might, it might be worth at least trying something out. Okay, so hang on. Kimberly's saying you want to have the character make a peace sign, but you can't seem to get the shape right. Okay, so let me help you with that. Hang on. Let's go to this layer. So if I was doing, oh, a couple of people are doing peace signs. Okay, cool. Let me just grab this one. Oh, Sam was just saying Prismacolor pencils are also very good and cheaper than Copic markers, and I think that is very true. So I'm just grabbing this hand and taking it over here. I'm going to do peace sign for this one instead. So let me do it here. So if he's doing peace sign instead, have a look at your own hand. Doing a peace sign is what I would say to start with. That's always a good starting spot. Because the first thing we need to figure out is, where is the thumb? Is the thumb on the inside or the outside of the hand? Yeah, Mia's saying, have a look at your own hand and copy the shape. She's not wrong. If you can see your own hand, then it's always good to sort of use your own hand as an example. Sometimes, though, it's hard to get an angle on your own hand. So I often use a mirror if I'm not sure. If I'm not sure how to get the shape right, I will use a mirror. But if we're saying, there it is. So if we're saying, first off, we'll start with a fist. A fist is going to be the thing that we need to start with. And then we're going to have two fingers coming out of the fist. So the fist is still that kind of diamond shape. If you have a look, I don't know if you can see, but if you have a look in the video window, you might be able to see me doing it at the moment. So I've got my hand up and I'm showing a fist. And so it's the same kind of fist shape as what's here. But then we've got two fingers coming out of the fist. And the thumb is on the inside. The thumb is on the inside of the hand. So what I mean by that is it's closer to the person. It's not over here. It's not on the outside of the hand. So it's close to the person, and then these two fingers are tucked in. So those two fingers tucked in, these two fingers, 1 and 2 are out there. And that's pretty much it. That's going to be peace sign option. Does that make sense to everybody? Everyone who's doing it anyway. Okay, so let's get on with refining this a little bit more now. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer and put my brush on 60 opacity. I do change the opacity of my brush quite a lot. This is just for those of you who are doing digital stuff. And it's just because it does make it slightly sketchier. It makes it a little bit more closer to like using a pencil. You can also download, or I think for most programs, you should be able to download different kinds of pens. So this particular pen I downloaded for free, and it's more like a pencil. So it does have that slightly pencil broken edge, which I really like. I think it's really nice to use. I'm going to bring this down under here. Oops, nope, that was the wrong layer. This one. Bear with me for a second. Okay, I want that one to be lighter. There we go. So options for hands. Okay. Now, zoom in. Too close, can't see my reference now. Zoom out. Okay. All right. So let's start to refine some of this. So we'll do hair, a little bit of fringe first. On top of the hat. And like I said to you about the hat, just make sure that it is the right kind of width, in the sense that it does cover his entire head. Hair going down here. Now, I'm just going to do a line drawing of him. In terms of colouring him in, I'm not really super interested in doing that right now because we've only got limited time today. But if you're happy with your picture and you decide you want to colour it in, that's awesome. So the rim of the hat, you notice the way the rim of the hat kind of curls around and under, and then we see the side of the hat coming out over here. And on the side of the hat, as I said, wider than his whole head. Coming up and across. And training down there. We won't get into super amounts of detail there. We'll just say there's something, symbol, Pokemon symbol, just there. I know that's not the Pokemon symbol. It's the symbol of his gym, I want to say. I'm not sure. It's been a very long time since I saw Pokemon. And his hairline coming down here. And the ear. So we've got one connected shape coming down there for the ear. Big hair. Big hair. Let's keep going on this side with the side of his head. Just look at the way it angles. So it kind of angles out and then in a little bit and then out again to his cheek. And then quite sharply turns in to become the bottom of his jaw there. Now we've got an idea of where his eyes are going to go, in the sense that we've got the full height of the eyes. But I said to the group earlier this morning, whenever you're drawing the eyes, I would suggest you start off with the top eyelid and make sure that that is in the right place and it's the right kind of shape and it's the right kind of size, and then it matches what's on the other side as well. Because you can always adjust it at this stage. But if you go too far and you finish the entire eye off and then you can't figure out how to make the other eye match, it's really hard to go back and do that. So I would always say start off just putting in one eyelid, one top eyelid, and then the other side of the top eyelid. And that way you know whether it's going to fit or not. So then we've got the really big, long iris, which we already talked about, really big, long iris. And there's going to be a big, long pupil in the middle of that, but his eyes are very dark. So we can shade that in. And then same over here. So we've done one side, come over and do the other side. And that gets up quite high. That's almost touching the eyelid. We haven't put the little shadow in the eye yet, but we'll do that in a second. I think we'll just finish with a bit more of the face first. And so there's just a little line there indicating the bottom of the eye. Then his nose, literally just the smallest line. He almost doesn't have a nose, it's so small. So just tiny little line, but he does have these distinctive sort of cheek lightning bolts. So put them in. And on this side. And then the smile. Now, another thing that I do get asked about a lot, even in my regular kind of classes, my regular drawing classes, is about drawing teeth. What should you do with teeth? And how much of the teeth should you show? And I always say less is more. So with these teeth, you can see they've got a tiny bit of this side of the tooth and a tiny bit of that side of the teeth. And then that's it. Nothing else. There doesn't need to be anything else in the middle. We certainly don't need to outline all of the teeth, which is what a lot of people's instinct is. A lot of people's instinct is to do this and then that, and it looks terrible. It looks really creepy and weird. So just having two little lines like that, that's enough. Our brains fill in the gaps. Our brains tell us, oh, that's where the top teeth are, that's where the bottom teeth are. And that's all we need. We don't need it to be absolutely spelled out to us. Okay, then we're going to go a bit of neck. So I'm going over the same lines, but basically just making it all a little bit darker and a bit more refined. And so front of his jacket here. The side of his jacket coming down, it joins up to the front there. I'll do the same on this side. Oh, good. Yes, Mia said she's up to the same stage as outlining. I hope everyone's at that stage. Is everyone sort of at the outlining stage? I think so. And put his shirt collar in. Every now and then Photoshop just does like a really random thick line. I'm not sure why. So I'll have to erase that. Monty said a bit behind. Don't worry if you are a bit behind. It's okay. Just work at your own speed. I don't want to rush you. And we will have a little break. Oh, no, we're not going to colour it in. The writer just asked, are we going to colour it in? No. Because it's more the colouring in. I mean, if we're looking at the colouring in of this, it is basically just flat, like the colours. So we're looking at the blue here, it's a flat blue. The green is a flat green. The only variation is a little bit with the shadows. And all it is then is just like one variation on the shadow. So even the neck here is a different tone. It's the same kind of color as the skin, but it's a different tone. So it's a little bit darker. And that whole area of the neck is all that second tone. If you look at the arm, we've got one flat color here, and then we've got the same tone that's on the neck, that same color and tone is for the shadow of the arm. So I think coloring it in, that's relatively easy. And it's certainly easier than this part of actually getting the proportions right. Who said, is it hard to draw with a mouse? Mia was asking, is it hard to draw with a mouse? Yes, it absolutely would be, except I'm not. So what I'm using is a drawing tablet, which I've got connected to my computer. And it's also hard in a way as well, because I'm not looking at what I'm drawing. So instead of looking down at my hand, I'm looking at the screen and then drawing with my hand kind of off to one side, which is tricky. And it does take a little bit of getting used to. It also does make it a little bit awkward sometimes. That's why sometimes I'll grab the screen and like rotate the screen to make it easier for me to draw, because it is difficult. But it's still much easier than drawing with the mouse. I don't think I could possibly be doing this if I was just using a mouse. It'd be way too hard. I'll show you. Oh, hang on. Let me just stop sharing for a second so you can see. This is what I've got. So it's not very big. I've got drawing tablet, and then this is a pen tool. And so I'm looking at the screen like this, and then over on the side I'm drawing like this. So can you see the mouse is moving? See, the mouse is moving. Don't know, maybe you can't see the mouse is moving. Mouse is moving because I'm moving my pen on the screen. So we're going to share screen and back to here. So that's how I'm drawing. Yeah, it would be way too hard. I mean, I'd be amazing if I was doing it just with the mouse. But yeah, the thing of not looking at your hand when you're drawing, it is tough. Okay, so I'm doing the peace sign hand now, for those of you who are also doing peace sign hand. So 2 fingers, and these 2 are tucked under, and these 2, that thing where it suddenly went big for no reason. For those of you who are doing the other kind of hand, copy this. Okay, so keep going with our vest. So I would say as well, and I think it's fairly obvious now that we're doing it, but it's worth talking about. I think it's worth mentioning. When you're drawing, when you're doing anything like this, any kind of anime, any kind of illustration, anything else, the sketching is really important. It's a huge part of illustrating. It's a huge part of drawing, anything in general, but particularly things like anime, where you have to work from your imagination a little bit. Because when something's realistic, you can kind of copy it exactly as is. And if we're copying someone else's anime drawing, then maybe we could just copy what they did. But for you to be able to draw a bigger range of things, and for you to be able to convert your own images into like kind of anime images, then it becomes more important that you spend more time kind of sketching and looking for the shapes of things and working things out. This is the other hand, it's just got a little fist. And it's got a big pocket there. Put the stripe on his shirt. And a t-shirt down there. Little details as well, like the way that you've got the hem of the t-shirt, the hem of the sleeves, and the hem of the t-shirt down here. That's the sort of thing that it's not necessarily an obvious detail. It's not necessarily you would think to look for it, but it is the sort of thing that makes an anime picture, especially when it has been stylized like this, it just makes it a little bit more kind of believable, a little bit more interesting. So next time you're looking at an anime character, looking at a character design, I want you to try and notice stuff like that. Like try and notice the way that the sleeves have a little hem on them, or even the way like the design on his jacket has got pockets, and the side of his trousers, there's like a stripe down the side of his trousers. So there's little thoughtful extra details that the designer has put into things to make the character have, well, to have more character. So the calf shape, I mentioned before, it's got the round part of the calf and then it gets thin. Same over here, we've got the round part of the calf and then it gets thin. And then the shoes.
I always draw like paper first and then take a photo of it and then color over it and outline it on the iPad.
Oh, yeah, cool. I do, so with some of my illustration, that's what I've done as well. Some of my picture books, except I scan it rather than take a photo of it because it has to be really high, like it has to be high quality so that it will print properly. But yeah, I do the same kind of thing. I'll do not necessarily a sketch. I might do like a finished drawing, but I'll often do a drawing in pencil, just on regular paper, and then I'll do the final sort of picture. I'll digitally ink over the top of it. But I also do a lot of my illustration is in watercolor, which is still traditional. And then I scan that in and then I do the inking over the top of that digitally. It keeps doing that. It's weird. I'll show you in a second. I'll show you one of my illustrations that has that. We're almost there. Almost there with our drawing of Ash here. So those feet, big triangular kind of feet. All right, let's zoom out, see where we're at. Pretty good. Right, last thing we need to do really to finish this off as a pencil drawing, because we're not going to go heaps into color, things we need to put in the shine in his eye. So there's a little highlight.
I just realized that I did T-Rex arms for one of my arms.
Oh, how are they T-Rex arms? They're just too short.
The second part of one of the left arm is very short. So
oh, really? Yeah. Well, good. It's good that you've recognized that. I just realized I didn't give him eyebrows. He needs eyebrows. That's the other thing that's missing. It's going to get funny without his eyebrows. Okay. Eyebrows. It's got even bigger eyebrows than I gave him. Big curved eyebrows. There you go. Slightly more curved. And let's zoom out. How's that looking? It's not too bad, hey? So I'll get rid of this layer and this layer and the hand layer. And there we go. Got a copy of Ash Ketchum.
It makes me think of the way people say it is his last name is Ketchup.
It's Ketchum, yeah. Well, I think it's supposed to be like catch them, catch them. But you're right, it sounds like ketchup. Every time I say it, I keep thinking that too. I keep thinking, oh, it sounds a bit like ketchup. Okay, so Ash Ketchum, absolutely. I'm going to take a break because I need a bit of a break, non-stop drawing and talking for 2 hours and 20 minutes. But you can keep drawing because I would like to see you all finish them off. And then when we come back, I'd love to have a look at what you've done. So whether you want to show me on your screen or you want to send me an email, either of those is absolutely fine. And I'll have a look at those when I come back. So you all carry on with your drawing for the next, I'm going to say 10 minutes. So at 2:30, we will start something new. And I'm going to go, well, I'm going to make a cup of tea. So I'm still going to be here, but I'm just not going to be right here. All right. Is there anything urgent anyone needs to say or share before I go briefly? Oh, okay. I will be back very soon. If you do want to take a break as well, so if you want to take a break, you want to go to the bathroom or you want to drink of water or whatever, now's a good time.
I expect everyone just to start talking. Anyone notice the clock in the background? You don't have to show your art if you want to or don't want to. You can if you want, though, yeah.
All right, I am back. So not digging the lo-fi chill hop. Is that what I'm getting? It's quite a lot of comments on the cafe music. Okay, so we are back, and the goal is now to take something else and do either a copy of an existing character, if you like, but I would like you to do a different kind of style of character. I just realized I'm not on video anymore. You can at least see my face. Or, and this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a actual photograph and kind of animeify the photograph. So you can either follow along with what I'm doing, or you can do your own version. Either way, I would like to see what you're doing. I'm not sure if anyone has sent me any examples yet. I did get, Cassandra sent me an image, but I think that was from before, maybe. I don't think that's from right now. Yes, Mia's asking, could you do yourself? Absolutely, you can do yourself. But I want you to do a figure, because we did do it like a face in the first session. And so I want you to try and do a whole figure this time. So not just a face. So the examples that I've got here, let me just turn this one off. I've got a couple of examples. So Ryder's saying, can you draw a link? Yeah, of course you can. Try and find a pose where it's like the full body though. So not, and if you want to do like the chibi link that I showed you before, you can totally do that as well, because it's about capturing the particular kind of style and character of that anime and applying what we've been talking about so far to whatever reference you have. So coming back to this one, so I've got this cool looking chick hanging out with a bunch of books. I got this guy. What's he up to? Who knows? Running lady. And a girl riding a broom. Now, I quite like girl riding a broom. There was a Studio Ghibli movie many years ago called Kiki's Delivery Service, which is also another Hayao Miyazaki movie as well. It's the same one as My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away. If you haven't seen Kiki's Delivery Service, it's really adorable and you should definitely watch it. But it's about like a little witch, and she has a pet cat and she flies around in a broom, delivers stuff. I know, the surprise, but the name is in the title. So I'm going to sort of animeify this girl. And it's going to be the same kind of steps that we've already done. So feel free to follow along with what I'm drawing. Or, as I said, if you want to find your own inspiration, you can also do the same thing, but you can follow along in the same kinds of steps. So in terms of the step-by-step, we're doing the skeleton first, putting on the muscle shapes, refining it, putting on the clothing, refining that, and then putting on the final details. We're all going to do the same step-by-step process, even if your reference is different. Sound good? Everybody happy with that? Everyone got an idea of what they're going to do? All right, cool. So we've got an hour left to go. And I think that that's going to be a good amount of time to work on this. So I'm going to first start off, make a new layer. Put the layer under there. Should be on this layer. That's it. And then I need another new layer, which is going to be over the top. And that will be for when we're ready to actually finalize the character. Okay. So let me zoom in a little bit. So starting off, I'm going to go head, So head is circle, and then jaw shape. So have a look over here at her. We've got, hang on, I have to put her underneath this layer as well. There we go. So we've got, I'm actually drawing on her face now. See, that's better. So we've got head shape, round head shape, and then jaw shape.
I'm literally looking. I stole my mom's phone, looking for photos of me with a full body, but I just can't find one. There's literally nothing.
Is there anything that's even like most of a body or like half a body?
There is, but it's normally a portrait. Me getting my first dino mask properly, because I love dino masks. So they look cool.
Okay. Well, is that one that maybe you could do later and then maybe just try and find, like even just maybe copy this one while we're doing it now, and then you can do that later for yourself.
I did find one, but I don't. Oh wait, I can. It does look clear when you zoom in. Oh, okay. Because you got a new phone, and I don't know if it's blurry when you zoom in or not.
Okay. You found something? Excellent. Okay. Now we've got the straight line of her broomstick there now too. So I've done head, and the head was circle, and then jaw. Put in where the neck is going to go, shoulders. Now she is a little bit side on, but there are still width to the shoulders, and the arms are still coming out of the shoulders. So from this point to this point, she still has that shoulder width. So we still need to put that shoulder width in, and we look at the angle of that shoulder width. It's a little bit down. Then rib cage. So rib cage is big, kind of egg shape in there. You can see the curve of it here, and then coming around the front here. And then hips. See, triangle for the hips, and the spine connecting those two. So spine connecting those two. Then arms and legs, we want from a shoulder to the elbow, and then triangle, the elbow, shoulders to the elbow, triangle. Then elbow to the wrist, and hand shape. What are we looking at? We're looking at a diamond hand shape. So diamond hand shape. Then the other side, got shoulder to elbow to wrist. So shoulder to elbow to wrist. Both of these are pretty much straight though. And then this hand shape, what are we looking at this time? 1, 2, 3, slightly more of a rectangle, slightly further out kind of rectangle. Then legs, so one is coming from here to this knee, and one is coming from this side to this knee. So still coming from the sides of the hips. So and there, and then one here, and triangle. See the triangle on the knee there, and the triangle on the knee here. So those are the triangles for the knees. And then going straight back to the ankle and straight down. And then look at the feet again, triangles, triangle foot. So triangle there and triangle there. Excellent. So we've got a good skeleton set up already. Now, next question is, though, before we go any further, looking at the proportions of our figure. She is an adult, which means we were talking about before, her head compared to her body is going to be smaller. So her there's more of like the sort of head size. There'd be more of this head size going down her body than if she was a child. So the question we ask ourselves is, do we want our character, which is this one we're doing over here? Oh, that's good, Mia. Glad to hear it. Do we want the character to have the same kinds of adult proportions, or do we want the character to be a bit more like a kid, or actually a bit more like an anime character? Because anime character proportions, generally, they are more sort of teenager proportions or kid proportions. You do get adults, obviously. You do get adults in anime. You get plenty of adults, but generally the characters, a lot of the characters in anime are not adults, or even if they are adults, they're usually like early 20s, maybe. So it's not that often that you get characters that are fully adults. I mean, obviously there's lots of exceptions, like Dragon Ball, and that's very popular. But even if you look at something like One Piece, I mean, My Hero Academia, they're literally school kids. But even like with One Piece, as much as they are meant to be adults, they kind of act like teenagers most of the time, and they have the physique of teenagers. So there is a certain amount of that in anime. So I've decided I do want her to look more kid proportions. And so the quickest and easiest way of doing that, now that I'm happy with the size of the rest of the body, is just literally make her head bigger. So for you, if you're making the head bigger, you can do that, like, and you're doing it in the traditional kind of, drawing it with pencil. You can just widen it out, make it bigger. The quickest and easiest way for me is to just literally pick up the piece of the drawing and then just stretch it out. And that's using the transform function. So you can go free transformer or transform. If anyone is using digital tools, you will often notice there are shortcuts like this, Control T. And so I don't, when I want to use something, I will quite often use shortcuts on my computer, which is maybe not obvious. Like I press L, which turns it into a lasso, and then pick that up. So selecting that area, and then I'll go Control T, and then that means I can now transform that area. If I hit escape, then you stop doing that. Anyway, carrying on. So I've decided she's going to have a bigger head, and that will make her look younger. Now, I should probably also just add like broom end. You can make it the same kind of broom if you want, but I'm going to make it like more of an old-fashioned style Harry Potter-y kind of broom. And then make the broomstick at the front a bit longer. All right, so that's stage one, same as we did for the last one. Now, what is the next step? The next step is we need to start putting some details onto it. And first thing we need to do for details is her face. So she's looking directly at the camera and she's turned her head to look at us. So if we go, the eyes are there in the middle of her face. It's pretty much, if I just drag that across, you can see the middle of her face is pretty much in the middle of the drawing. So if I did the same thing over here, we're going, the middle line of her face is running down the middle there. And then we want her eyes. So the top of the eyes are about halfway. So that's the top of the eyes, not the middle of the eyes, the top of the eyes. And then the width of the eyes, so the depth of the eyes, I should say. And put that in. Nose halfway between the eyes and the chin. And her mouth. Now, I do think it's fun the way that she's smiling. And so I am going to have her smiling in this. So I'll put the smile in there. Because she's smiling, it does mean that her jaw needs to go down a little bit more to make room for the smile, because her mouth is like a little bit open. So moving for the smile. And zoom in on the eyes. Because the eyes are a big feature of an anime face. So eyes need to be the same distance apart. And what kind of eyes I decide to give her is entirely up to me. We talked a little bit in the last session about different eye shapes. I want her to look kind of cute. So we could do sort of square eye shape in the sense that the whole eye fits into the square. Or we could do a rhombus kind of eye shape, which is more it's actually more realistic, but also has maybe more of a grown-up kind of characteristic to it. If we want to make her look really cute, then we'd be going with something that's rectangle upright, like Ash Ketchum, where we've got the top eyelid and the bottom eyelid and the whole eye stretched out. That's going to make her look really cute. But I think I just want something in between cute and really cute. So I'm going to go with pretty well square. So maybe lift those up a little bit. And then make top eyelid round and round. Put in the pupil to make her look like she's looking at us. I know she looks a bit scary. That's why we have to have the iris so that she looks less scary. And then eyebrows. The expression in the eyebrows also helps look less scary. That's going to be eyes and nose and mouth. Now, hair, she's meant to be riding on a broom. So her hair, number one, needs to be taller than the top of her skull. I think lots of people were struggling with this in the last session. So make sure that her hair is higher than the top of her skull. And also that remembering that this here, the top of the eyes, is halfway. So the top of her head is higher up. We've got more forehead there. And I'm going to put her hairline coming in here. I think I'll give her a fringe, maybe like a square cut kind of fringe. And then should give her long hair all blowing in the breeze. And ear, so the ear, top of the ear lines up with the top of the eye, bottom of the ear lines up with the bottom of the nose. So she's got lovely long hair. There we go. Now we need to put in muscle shapes. She's not very old in our picture, and that's because we've changed the age of her by making her head larger. So muscle-wise, is she going to be very muscly? Again, thinking about her character, she's meant to be a girl riding a broom, maybe a witch. I would assume a witch. And she's only, by the looks of the size of her head to her body, she's probably only a teenager now, or maybe 10 years old. She's not Goku or Naruto or any kind of fighting character necessarily, although she could be. But in my world, she's not. So that means muscle shape wise, she's probably not very muscly. So we'll give her straight upper arms to the elbow, and then the lower arms we mentioned need to have round muscle near the joint. Round muscle near the joint. Can you see here as well on the actual reference? See the round muscle near the joint, and then getting straighter as it goes towards the wrist. Oops, angle on that's a bit weird. Take that off. Go, angle getting straighter as it goes towards the wrist. Then rib cage wise, I think that's pretty fine. And her legs. So maybe a little bit rounded, but basically straight for her upper leg. Do that on both. And then lower leg, need round muscle up here, close to the joint, and round muscle up here, close to the joint. And then getting thin and straightening out as it gets to the ankle. Okay, so I'm at this stage, I would like to get a sense of where everyone else is at, because I know that you've all been, you're all still sort of drawing, but if anyone wants to share their work with me now so that I can have a look at this stage, because now that we're at this stage, the next stage is we're going to put some clothes on her and fill all of that out a little bit more. So this stage is quite important, because if there's any changes we want to make to any of her, like her features or to her proportions, now's the time when we need to be doing it. So if anyone does want me to have a look at their work, now is a good time. Otherwise, I will keep going. You can certainly email it if you want. I'm happy for you to send me an email with your work as well. If you do email it, do try and take either a clear picture or a screen cap or something so that I can, you know, get a good look at it. But I've just put my email address back in the chat as well, so you don't have to scroll too far back to get it. Okay, so while I'm waiting on any emails to come through, I'm going to carry on with mine. So we're at the point now where we can start to, as I say, put clothing on and start to refine. Now, in terms of clothing, I would say, you know, we can pick any kind of clothing we want. If you're actually copying an image that has clothing, that's really good. But for her, I'm going to give her just like a loose kind of top. This is a little bit similar to Kiki's delivery service. I give her short sleeves. So because the wind is going that way, I want the sleeve to be kind of bulging on this side of her arm and this side. Now for her, the front of her shirt, I'm going to give her a big bow, which is kind of like a Japanese kind of schoolgirl look, but also, again, similar to Kiki's delivery service. She's got a big bow. And then for her legs, I'm going to put on a skirt. So again, it'll be close to the top of her leg at the front, and then at the back, it's going to be flying a little bit backwards. So it goes away from the back of her leg there. And then shoes. What are we going to do for shoes? I think I'll put socks and going to give her sort of school looking shoes. So like with a strap, and then the front of the shoe kind of rounded, And the sole of the shoe following that. So do the same on this side. And a strap. A rounded front to the shoe. And then the sole of the shoe there. All right. Now, fingers and her hands. So let me zoom in a little bit. So I said we've got this general shape for her hand. So her thumb is going behind there. And we've got one finger here in front. Then the other fingers going 1, 2, and then the third's tucked in. So see how just having the big shape and then breaking it up into the fingers, that's the best way to do it. And then here we've got thumb coming over the top there. And then the other fingers, you can just see the other fingers. 1, 2, a little bit of one finger there. And then the front of the broom is going to be in front there. The broom goes behind her leg and then up the back here. Attach it to some bristles. Bristles. All right, let's zoom out. Whoop, nope, zoom in, zoom out. Look pretty cute. So I'm just having a look at yours, Harmony. Your email here looks good. Do you want me to keep it private and just make some comments, or are you okay if I bring it up on the screen? Okay. All I want to say, I love what you've done so far. The only thing I want to say is I think maybe the hands and feet are a bit small. They're really good shape, but they're just a little bit small. Everything else I love. I think it's working really well. I think you've done a fantastic job. So I think keep going the way that you're going. I like the way you've changed the head size as well. So you've made the head bigger so that it looks like a younger person. And I think that that's worked really well. And yeah, legs, arms, torso, everything else looks like it's in really good size and shape. It's just the hands and feet can be a little bit bigger, but excellent work so far. Very, very good. I don't have any other messages, so I'm going to carry on with my girl. And now is the time, if you are following or if you're doing your own, now's the time to lighten all of your sketch marks. So either by erasing them or patting them back with a kneadable eraser, whatever you got to do. So we want to get rid of most of those sketch marks. Also, this is the time, like with the other one, where I'm not going to be paying that much attention to the reference anymore. So I'm going to get in closer with my drawing, and because I've gotten everything I need to get out of the reference so far. So now I'm going to get on with turning her into an anime character. But make sure for yourself, just make sure in terms of your proportions or perspective, all of that, just make sure that at this stage, before you start erasing things, make sure you're happy with everything and you feel like everything is, reasonably well resolved so that you can just draw over the top and refine this. Okay, I am zooming in on her face because I've talked about this before. I feel like the eyes are really important for the anime character. I think it's where like 80% of what makes anime look like anime is in the eyes. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe it's not 80%, but it's a lot. And with the eyes, starting with the top of both eyes. So this eye that I'm drawing now, the one on the right-hand side, it's going around the corner a little bit. So I need to make it slightly more narrow. It should be the same on the same line. So the same line across here. But the width, it needs to be a little bit more narrow. And that's because it's going like around the corner. So it gets a little bit compressed visually. Keep working on her eye a little bit more, but I'm happy with the width between them and I'm happy with the height. And so then bring the side here. So this is the start of the side of the eye. Maybe give her a few more eyelashes. Oh, Mia's outlining as well. Very good. Now, I said about the pupil and the iris, you might need to, like in real life, pupils are always circular and irises are always circular. But because I've sort of extended the eyes and made it more kind of wide and open, I need to also change the shape of the pupil and the iris to make them more wide open. And making sure she's looking in the right direction. She's not quite at the moment. She's looking slightly off to the left. I was saying with the eyes in the last class, just take your time in terms of getting the position of the pupil right. Because you know it when you see it, that she's looking at you. But it sometimes takes a little bit of adjusting. Sometimes she'll end up just looking slightly over your shoulder, like slightly to the left or slightly to the right. So you just kind of keep moving the pupil and iris around a little bit until it's just right. Now I'm putting a little line underneath the eye there, and I want to give the iris a bit of color. Some coloring in the iris there. Now, here's an interesting one that's worth knowing and worth thinking about. If I put this line under the eye here, let me just take it off for a second. So if I put this line here, like a little bit lower, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But she is smiling in the picture, like we've given her a big smile. And what happens when you smile is that your bottom eyelid actually comes up a little bit, and it will often sort of go a little bit flat and cover the bottom of your iris. So the difference between this, where it's fine, hang on, let me just put in a little bit of her nose, and we'll put in some of her smile. So it's fine. She looks like she's smiling. But if I do this, if I take off now a little bit of the bottom of the iris, take it all the way up here, and then put the line in with a bit of a downward curve, see how that makes her smiling so much more? Like suddenly her eyes are smiling as well. It's not just her mouth that's smiling. I'll show you again. I'll go back and we'll go back to the previous one. So here, this is her just normal eyes. Nothing wrong with that. She still looks like she's smiling. But then lift the bottom of the eyes up and put that line with a slightly downward curve, and suddenly she's smiling heaps more. So that's a little expression thing for you. And that's also true no matter what face you're drawing. It's always true. The bottom eyelids always come up a little bit and cover the bottom of the iris, and that will always make the face look like it's smiling a little bit more. Now I'm putting in a bit more shadow into the eyes, so covering up the top, putting a bit of shadow into the top of the eye. then coming back now, finish the, or she can finish the eye off now. So putting in a little highlight into the eye there. Ah, that's cute eyes. All right, now let's put her fringe on. We've got eyebrows here too. So eyebrows, eyebrows, and put the fringe on. Now giving her sort of slightly square fringe. And the fringe has got to come from somewhere. So let's give it a little edge up here where it's emerging from. And then the side of her face. And we can make her cheek a little bit more rounded. See how I've just rounded off her cheek a little bit there? Let me just show you again. If I take this off, this is also helping her look like she's smiling. If we just go where the original line is here, there's, again, nothing really wrong with that in the sense that it doesn't look weird, really. That's where her jaw is. It's not my good inking side. I'll do this direction. It's better. So nothing necessarily wrong with that, but if I make her cheek from here, if I make it kind of bulge out a little bit more, just have a look at the difference. So make it come a bit more round. And then coming down to the chin, makes her a little bit cuter. Makes her a bit cuter, and it also emphasizes that smile a little bit more, I think, which is nice. Okay, so keep going with that hair. Now I have her hair coming in front of her ear. I might just put the top of her ear behind there. And then we've got the bottom of her ear coming in here. And some curly hair, that short hair to get the back of your neck. Need her neck coming down into her collar. Now I've given her quite a thin neck, which is, I think, appropriate for her age. And it's important to think about where the neck is, because if it's too wide, if we like put it out here, that's going to make her face look a bit weird. So if we bring it back a little bit more, it makes her look a bit younger as well. And then the top of the hair, want that coming all the way out. A nice flow. Now, I do have a lot of people asking me about drawing hair as well. And honestly, I feel like we could do an entire 2.5 lessons just on hair. So what I would just say to you, the main piece of advice I want to give you is don't try and draw every single hair. That's not the best idea. Try and group the hair together. So you see with sort of the outline, I'm doing like the main outline and then a few hairs in between. That's the best idea. If we want to, let's say we want to color her hair in and we want to put like a shine on her hair in the same way that we've done on her eyes, the way to do that is like in a strip. So let me show you what I mean. So Just make another layer. So let's say we were doing all of her hair darker. And I know this isn't perfect. I'm not trying to make this perfect. But I just want to show you. So we're making all of her hair darker. So the way to sort of group the hair together and to give it like a shine is you just do it in one section. So her hair is sort of rounded at the front. We just do this bit. Just do that bit at the front. And let me zoom in. You make some little zigzags in the same way that you've done the hair down here. You do little zigzags in the hair at that edge where the shine is kind of meant to be. And like I said, you don't need to describe every hair. You can just get a feeling of there being like there's a bit of shine just hitting this section across the front, and that's enough to tell you that the front of the hair is round. All right, I'm going to get rid of that though, because I don't want mine to have color to her hair. We'll do it separately anyway. Main thing is don't do too much. All right, so I'll zoom back in. So keep going. I'm going to do clothes. Oh, okay. Kevin just said iPad ran out of battery, so you're on the phone now. No worries. I did wonder because I heard the like ding dong of someone leaving and someone coming back, so I wasn't like, who's left at this late stage? But I understand now. Okay, so collar to her shirt. And then I said I'm going to put a bow on the front here. So I'm having that kind of go over her sleeve a little bit. And the front knot there. And then back of the shirt, bringing that down and out. And it should have some, like the hair, it should have some folds and creases as it goes around, and it's going like with the shape of the wind. And her sleeve. Remember me saying about hems? Hems on sleeves is a good idea because it gives it that extra added kind of realism. And this is the thing about anime. We think about anime, we think about cartoons and stuff as not being realistic, but especially if there are people, if there are any kind of people or humanoids, generally there is at least a little bit of realism. Like all of this stuff that I've talked to you today about drawing figures, like this bit when we're doing the arm, the way that it goes rounded around that forearm and then gets thinner as it goes to the wrist, that's also true for if you were drawing normal figures. I mean, you know that it's true because I used a photograph to show you that, but it's worth kind of remembering that it doesn't just apply to when you're doing anime. This applies to everything. So if you've got any other art classes that you're doing or any other kind of figure drawing, it's all the same kind of stuff. And the more you do kind of look at references or try and draw from life, the better your anime will also get. So my skills in being able to do illustration, being able to do anime, a lot of that has come from the fact that I can also draw people very realistically. And it's because I understand what the human body looks like and how it's made, what the construction of it is. It allows me to simplify that and turn it into anime. So coming down the forearm. Now just have a look here, because it might not be obvious what I've done. So these two little marks that I made here, I made one mark here on this side and one mark here on this side. This is like the outside of the elbow, see here? And then the mark I did on the inside is the inside of the elbow. See, so I did that little divot there for the outside of the elbow and that one for the inside of the elbow. And that kind of ties into what I was just saying, because the thing is, I did that without even thinking about it. I knew that they would have to be there because they're always there. But I hadn't actually looked at the reference when I did that. I just thought, well, I know that those are going to be there because it's a human body. So, and that's something that's come from experience. So putting the broomstick out here. And then got the skirt. A bit of angle on that. I'm making it a slightly pleated skirt. See, now that I'm all close up as well, I've got my sketch to follow. So that's why I was saying it's really important that you're kind of happy with your sketch before you start inking, because you might want to get in quite close. And so the big kind of stuff, the big proportions, like the shapes of hands and feet and all of that stuff, that needs to be pretty well set. You don't want to be trying to change that when you're at this stage. So we've got calf, and then I said I'm putting on a sock. And finish off this leg and knee. So when I did that triangle for the knee, that's why. So I can put in this little mark here, and that's going to tell my audience that's where her knee is. And then shoe. So before, I don't really like doing shoes for imagination, but I didn't have references for this foot. Bring that foot down. And so just like with a hat, and I was mentioning before with a hat has to be bigger than the head. Same with a shoe. A shoe has got to be bigger than the foot. You can't have your shoe and foot at exactly the same size, or the shoe smaller than the foot. That really doesn't work. This side of the calf. Turn it around. Amelia was just asking, should she ink it or can she leave it as a sketch? You can totally just leave it as a sketch if you want. It's up to you. I mean, I think I think it's really scary to ink, especially if you're inking like traditional style, because once you start to put that ink on, there's just no going back. But that said, I do like the look of an inked drawing, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to ruin anything. And you can always do stuff more than once. You can always do something again. But what I would say to you is if you do leave it as a sketch, maybe just make sure that your penciling is nice and tidy. So don't just leave it as a sketchy kind of sketch. Try and make your penciling nice and tidy. Where am I missing the rest of the handle here. And going through there, see how I'm making sure it's connected. And then just the last bits. It's going to be tail of my broom. All right, now if I get rid of my layer underneath, and I'll get rid of my reference picture. Zoom in. Oh, just saw her missing the front of her shirt. Hang on, we're going to put that in. Let's bring the reference, the sketch back up again. There it is. Okay, so there she is. That's my anime witch girl. We should probably put something in her teeth. We were talking about teeth before. So there's a couple of things I could do with her teeth. We could do the same thing we did with Ash, where we just do like a little bit either side. Or we could have her mouth open. And if we're going to have her mouth open, then we would need to actually fill in some of the inside of her mouth with dark. And if we leave a little bit of white down the bottom, then that's going to be, we can see some of her top teeth and her bottom teeth. And you might also want to then actually give a little bit of a, see a little bit of shape just to the bottom. I'm definitely still not outlining, but I'm just giving a little bit of shape just to the bottom. We could also make her mouth even more open by pushing those teeth down, or even pushing these teeth up. I mean, you could have her entire mouth completely open, no teeth, if you want, but that looks a bit weird. She starts to look like her teeth are missing rather than she just has her mouth open. So I'm going to go all the way back to a little bit of teeth, just a little bit of teeth. Another thing that's quite cute, it's an option, you could also do like a little bit of teeth with kind of little fangs if you wanted to make her like a little cat person or something. That's kind of cute too. But entirely up to you what you decide you want to do with her teeth and her mouth. I'm just going to leave it a little bit either side. So in terms of refining this, if there's anything left to kind of do to keep working on this, I would say it would just be about, keep sort of tidying your lines up. And in the rest of her clothes, like the rest of the figure and the rest of her clothes, I've only done one line. I think definitely around the face, I did a few more lines and I sort of finished it off a little bit. So I might think about doing that. And then also we could be coloring her in as well. But in terms of changing this figure into an anime character, I'm going to call it a success. I'm going to say I think I did an okay job. All right, only about 5 minutes left to the end of class. So if anyone has some work that they really want to share with me, I would absolutely love to see it. Ooh, I've just seen Amalia has shared hers with me. It's fantastic. I love it. I love it so much. Can I share it with the group? Because I want everyone to see it. I know it's not finished yet, but it's super cool. Oh, you're close to finished coloring. Okay. Well, send me another picture. I love it. I think it's absolutely adorable. It looks fantastic. And I hope you're really pleased with it. Are you happy? I'm so sorry. You're all so critical of yourselves. Too critical of yourselves, I think. I think you've done, and especially because, well, you'll see in a minute when Amalia's finished off, hopefully, but the clothing has changed a little bit, so it's a slightly different costume on the character, and the hair's really wild. It looks awesome. I love it. Anyone else want to share any work with me? Literally no other cameras on. But if you do, you can just email them through. I'd love to see where you're at.
I can try showing mine at the moment, but I just can't put the camera on for some reason.
Your camera is currently on.
Well, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, I can't see myself. But
Oh.
it's weird.
It is weird. Okay, can I show everyone Amalia? Yeah? Yeah. All right, hang on. I'm just going to download it. Just give me a sec. I do want to see yours as well, Mia, but I just want to show everyone this one because it's super cute. Oh, here we go. Let me just find it. Downloads. Look at this. That's Amalia's one.
I like that. That's actually really good.
It's really good.
That's really good.
Isn't that really good? Amalia's giving everyone a little thumbs up in the window. I don't know if you can see, but I think it's gorgeous. I think you've done such a great job, and especially stuff like the hands, hard, but you nailed it. The arm shape's great. I love the different costume. I love the hair. I just love it. I love it so much. And
I can see myself now, so I know what I'm actually doing.
Excellent. All right. Do you want to share with the group, or do you just want to share with me?
I can show the group because I'm on iPad. I can't.
Okay. Hang on.
It's not finished.
That's all right. Hang on. Let me pin you. Where are we? Spotlight for everybody. There you are. Hey, nice one. That's very cute. Is this based on a picture of you?
Yeah, the original picture is where is it? I have to get rid of all the layers first. The original picture was this.
Cool. Show me the new one.
And then the real photo is better. Okay. Gotta lock some of them quickly. So I don't actually draw on it, but then yeah, that's it. I guess.
Very good work. All right. Well, like I said, pretty much at the end of class now, and I hope you learned a lot. I'm going to be running, we've got another 2 of these sessions next Friday. And so next Friday, it's the same idea. We'll be doing one session that's about like faces and character faces, and then we'll do another session that's about figures and poses. With both of those, even if you are booked in and you do end up doing another repeat, I will be kind of going over the same topics, but I will be using different references. So like today, with this one that we did, that's one reference, but like I showed you, I've got different kinds of references as well. So there's going to be different references each time, and you won't be always doing the exact same thing. So yeah, like I said, I hope you learned a lot, and it was a pleasure teaching all of you, and I hope you had fun. That's it. All right, good work, everybody. If you do finish anything off and you want to send it to me, you can always send it to my email. I would love to see what you're up to. And I hope to see you again, hopefully in a different class or another online class or something.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. See ya.
See ya.